Hello, welcome. I'm Scott Marler, host of the Sunday Recap, and this is the Sunday Recap. We're coming to you from the United Methodist Church here in Farmington, Memorial United, as a matter of fact. And we're in the old library. It's one of my favorite places in this church. My guest this week, I'm super excited, is Angie Zolman. Angie here goes to at least the 9 o'clock service. She sings in the band, and then today she was in the choir. I'm going to let her tell us a little bit more about all of that. Tell us everything that you do, everything that you've ever done, where you come from, where you're going, your family. Give me just a glimpse into your life.
Oh, wow. I don't know. Okay, we got like 12 minutes or something. It's going to take a while.
We've got 30.
What? Okay, so I'm Angie Zolman, and I currently am a special needs teacher at North County Middle School. So proud of my kids. I'm going to work on, I'm working on my master's in applied behavioral analysis so that I can be a behavioral therapist for my students, because in this area, they don't have anybody really that they can go to or take their kids to. You have to take the kids up to St. Louis, or you have to take them down to Cape. So I'm really super excited. I would like to start something here to where our kids, who have autism, don't have to make that long trip of crazy sensory stuff. And then I've got two amazing kids. I've got a wise and noble 9-year-old who's awesome. And then I have a wild and crazy 4-year-old. And he's who I aspire to be. And she reminds me how awesome I can be. And then I've got a really awesome husband who takes care of me. And so he is my yin and I'm the yang. So that's me.
That's a great analogy. So have you might have said this and I missed it, but have you done your entire teaching career in special ed?
I have. We're going on lucky year 13. I did a little para work before that. Special ed all the way. I prefer the student with special needs over the typical student because there's just something pure and honest that comes with that relationship. They don't realize that the rest of the world wears a mask. Mm-hmm. So you get who you get that day. And they in turn teach me that it's okay to be myself. And I think I've gotten a little bit more wackier and crazier since dealing with them. Plus they're teenagers. And so you have to, have all sorts of bells and whistles to keep them.
So first of all, my mom, I don't know if you know this or not, but my mom retired as a special ed teacher.
I know that. I thought that was totally cool.
Yeah. So I know that there's a special place in heaven for special ed teachers. She taught behavior disorder when I was at West Elementary, so like mid to late 90s. And I can remember going into her class and my mom just being able, it takes a special breed of person to be able to do what you do. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And honestly, I couldn't see myself in any other place.
And second of all, like you said, you teach teenagers.
They're awesome.
There's like, I tell everyone this, there's this thing that happens between being a child and being an adult. And there's a reason that caterpillars go into a cocoon for that stage of their life. I believe that caterpillars are cocooning because their mothers would kill them. I watch the interaction that my daughter and my wife are having, and I think, man, I don't remember being that way. But they're almost just like on a different level. They're just, and I feel bad because it's not intentional. And there are glimpses where I see my teenager coming through and it's just the beautiful person that's within. Then, like you said, there's this other being that comes out of them. And it's tough.
It is. And it's tough for them too. So I love working with that particular group because I have ADHD. And sometimes I have different faces and I get them. I get when they're frustrated and they have no understanding why they're feeling the way they are. And I feel that I can relate to them. And so I feel like I understand why I am who I am and why I have what I have. And I'm very proud of it. And
it makes you a little bit more grateful for it, yeah?
It does. I am grateful for every experience I've ever had. the gnarly up to the beautiful because it helps me be a better servant and a better teacher.
I think that that's the true definition of maturity. That when you can look back at all of those circumstances and see something beautiful within them. I have a very dear friend of mine that experienced a near-death event, and he told me that he lives his life by 2 rules now, and one of them is that he will always enjoy his food, and his second rule is that he will never wish time away. And I think that that goes into that. And he understands. We were talking the other day, and he said, I understand that there's going to be bad days, and there's going to be times that you're arguing with your significant other or the kids are driving you nuts. And he said, and I used to think, man, I just wish this moment would go away. But he said, I will take a bad moment over not being here with them and not experiencing it,
I love that outlook.
Isn't that a cool outlook?
Yes.
So maybe the real test of maturity to me is not having to experience that near-death experience, but still have that same outlook, right?
Yes.
So, what do you do here at the church?
Well, I sing at the 9:00 service for the contemporary band.
Like an angel, she
Oh,
sings.
shucks. I paid them $12 for that. I'm a teacher. I can't go any higher than 12. And it's August. We all know
Right.
that. And then I like to sing in the choir. I really enjoyed this winter. We did, oh my gosh, I forgot what, the Messiah. We did the Messiah. It was so much fun. I have just been bebopping along like a little ping pong ball. I love the early morning service whenever I'm not working at the contemporary side. I like to go to that because it reminds me of my grandpa. And yeah, I'm just kind of going all over the place, just trying to figure out, what is all about this place. And it's so cool and interesting.
So it's a very eclectic mix of services that we have here. And so I think some people look at that and go, it's a little bit much. But I look at it and say, what an opportunity.
Exactly.
Right? It's like going to McDonald's and being able to get pizza.
I know. They're doing tacos now at Burger King. I'm kind of questioning that. So, but other than that, I'm good. It's $1. I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, for $1, I guess.
Exactly.
But so I love being able to come to the very early morning, which is more of a gospel type service.
So great.
It's great. And then sometimes I feel a little bit more like I want to come to a concert. So I go to the 9:00 service, and they just rock out down there. But then you come up to the 10:30, and it is a Methodist service.
Oh, it's
with the
so
organ
cool.
and the choir,
It is. I love that.
I absolutely love it.
Can I give you a little story?
Well, we've only got like 40. Yeah, of course you can.
My husband and I have been together for, my gosh, it's our 13th anniversary. So we've been together about 15 years almost. And he never wanted to go to church. Never wanted to go to church. Hey, Tim, let's go to church. Hey, for my Mother's Day gift, I finally got him to go to a church when Lige was a baby. It was Lige's first Mother's Day, so he felt obliged. He went. But after that, he's like, no, I'm done. Well, Mark Kaiser, who plays at the contemporary band, he was a coach at North County. And he and Tim knew each other because Tim works there too. And Mark had us come and jam with him one night, and we had a great time. We had several friends over. Actually, our friend that was playing with us this morning, his name's Billy McMunn. He actually jammed with us that night, and we kind of would catch up once a month or something and jam. And then we just kind of went on our separate ways. Map testing happened, and teachers go into their own little corners. Well, a year later, out of nowhere, last New Year's Eve, we were sitting there with my mother-in-law in my house, and we get a call from Mark Kaiser. And so he left a message. Tim listened to the message, and he started laughing. And I said, what's so funny? And he said, Mark wants me to just try and play at the contemporary service at his church. And he said, isn't that crazy? And Tim's mother laughed. She's a Harley bike rider lady, so she's a hoot. And you can see where Tim gets it from. And so he was like, hey, that's so funny. And so they were just laughing. And I said, well, wait a minute. You always complain that you don't get to play your drums enough. And he said, well, yeah. And I said, what if? So he called Mark immediately back and said, hey, what's all this about? And Mark sent him the song list, and he started listening to the songs. He had his earbuds in the whole time. We have a drum kit in our living room. He would drum and everything. And that's how God got into church. And I texted my friend Danielle and I said, oh, wow, she knows the plight I've had to take over the years to get him to go to church. So then Mark calls and, says, hey, come to our church and play. Do something you absolutely love. And so I texted my friend going, this is what's going on. We're now playing at Contemporary. We're now Methodist. I said, well played, God. Well played. So, and that's why we're here. And now he is he's very astute. He has to be here and he has to get the message. And I really enjoyed that. Like, it blew my mind. Totally would have never pictured my husband going to church. But we have so many different varieties here that there's something here for everybody. And that moment was absolute proof of that.
So, what a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing.
It blew my mind.
So, what I have to say about that is this. It is easier to just obey God because he's going to get his way.
He is. He's good.
He is. And it doesn't, when people hear the words discipline and devout and Methodist, methodical, that's the root word there. They think, it's terrible. I don't want to go. But then you get here and you get to do something that Tim absolutely loves.
Yeah.
And you can tell he loves it. You should come to the 9:00 service and watch him play the drums. You can see that when someone enjoys what they're doing, you can see it, and you can see it in Tim every time he's up there.
Oh, yeah, this is a part of him now.
And I love, too, that you said, we have a drum kit in our living room. Like, of course, you have to.
Absolutely. Right? He's a drummer.
Right? Well, I have an MMA ring set up in my living room.
There you
no,
go.
I'm just kidding. I really don't. All right, so today, August 4th, 2019, we talked about justice. As you all know, if you've been paying attention here, the last few weeks we've been going through the compassion, justice, worship, and devotion. And Pastor Beaton made a couple of things pretty clear today about those being, he talked about the private and the public side of those words, right? So compassion and justice being can be public, worship being public, devotion being private. So today, as we talk through this scripture, I want us, and he asked us, to think of it and how it relates to justice. And he started off his sermon by saying, I wish we had more sermons about money, said no congregation ever. And that's true. Money can be an uncomfortable subject. So I used to drink. I don't drink anymore, but I used to. And I used to live by the rule that you never talk about religion, politics, or money when you're drinking. And those three things you can take out when you're drinking and put in when you're churching, and it becomes a pretty decent rule to live by. People get upset when you talk about those things, but they're things that need to be talked about. And Pastor Beaton didn't pull any punches today, but I think that he paralleled the passage. I don't think that Jesus pulled any punches on this too. So with that, I'll read this. I used to ask people to read, but I think it makes them uncomfortable, so I got it.
Yay!
I got it.
Woo-hoo!
Yeah, you're a teacher. Tell me you don't make people uncomfortable, right?
Hey.
You want to read? Okay, thanks.
I'll sit and wait.
So we're in Luke. We're in the Gospel of Luke. We are in chapter 12, and we're going to start in verse 13. So it starts. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me." But he said to them, "Friend, who set me to be a judge or arbiter over you?" So that's 13, 14, and I love this. He says, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me." At my house, it's tell Lane to turn the Xbox off. I don't know. There's always something to be divided. And I love how Jesus bows out here. Jesus says, "Who made me the boss?"
Exactly.
I'm not going to deal with that. But then he goes on. Because you know that when Jesus starts to talk, you're not getting off that easy. He's going to give you a little something to think about. So he goes on here and he says to them, "Take care, be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." Then he told them a parable. The land of a rich man produced abundantly, and he thought to himself, "What should I do? I have no place to store my crops." Then he said, "I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grain and all my goods. And I will say to my soul, 'Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, and be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool! This very night your life is being demanded of you, and the things that you have prepared, whose will they be?' So it is with those who store up treasure for themselves, but are not rich toward God." So, a couple of things. Like I said, first of all, beautiful that Jesus bows out of the family squabble so gracefully. Then goes on to say, he gives a warning, doesn't he? He says, "Be guarded against all kinds of greed." And that got me to thinking about how many different kinds of greed that there are, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So you start to think about, I'm very greedy with my time. I'm very greedy with my money, or I can be very greedy with my possessions. And then I start to think, so in jujitsu, there's two types of jujitsu you do. You do this thing where you wear a gi, and you do this thing where you wear a no gi. No gi doesn't just mean you strip the gi off. That would be weird. But it is more where you wear just like shorts and a t-shirt, right? So gis have become one of those things for me that I really like to have lots of. Now, it's silly because I can only wear one at a time. But I buy them all the time, right? So that's it just got me to thinking about all the different types of greed. And then power. Power, I think, is the antithesis of all greed to me. Do you know the definition of greed?
I do not. Not offhand, do you?
I do. I wrote it down.
Yay! Go team.
So greed is an intense desire for something, especially wealth, power, or food. And I looked that up and thought that was I've never thought about being greedy with my food.
Oh, really?
I've not. Yeah. I mean, that was the
You've
example.
never had your slice of cheesecake that your brother?
Oh, that's a good.
Right?
Yeah. So Heather and I diet, and that's my food.
That's right.
I bought
You're
that
gonna hide
special.
That.
My mom had a drawer in our house, and everybody knew that drawer was there. It had all the oven mitts and stuff, and right behind that was a cache of paydays.
Yes.
And I
All
knew they
moms
were
have
there.
That. Ooh,
I knew they were there.
Nice.
But I didn't touch them. I was scared.
Yeah,
of my mother.
you should be. Yeah, she's a teacher. Teachers need their
Yes.
chocolate and their paydays.
So then he goes on into the parable. And in this parable, he's talking about a rich man. And the rich man says, "Hey, you know what? Look at all this that I've done, this ground that I have seeded and sown and then reaped in the harvest. And now I have so much that my barns are too little.
Yep.
My closet is not big enough for all of my geese. So what do I need to do? Obviously, get another closet.
Yeah, I was going to say, add to it.
Got to build another barn.
That's right. Pat yourself on the back. You've been successful.
And then that's what he says. He says, I. Look at all that I have done. So you told a quick story. I'm going to tell you a quick story. I was 19, 20 years old, and Heather and I were living in a tiny little apartment in South St. Louis, right by the Best Buy, right across from the mall. Yep.
Yeah.
Totally. Right where we were on McAdoo Court is the name of it.
Oh my gosh, okay.
We lived at the McAdoo Court Apartments. And it was my first place. Heather and I lived there together with Finley, and she was little bitty. And Heather and I were up late one night having a theological discussion, and I said, I was working for the railroad, and I was very proud of everything that I had accomplished. And I said to Heather, look at all that I have done. I have provided for us an apartment to live in the lap of luxury, right? Because, those first apartments, it was nice.
That's right. And it's in St. Louis. That's classy right there.
Our bathroom was like this color. It was pink.
Ooh, fancy.
It was awesome. And I said, I went to school. I got this job. I did this. I did that. And she said, you need to be careful. And I said, for what? I have done all of this. And she said, that's fine. I think you need to give some credit to God. And I said, for what? And 3 weeks later, I was laid off from that job. Now, I don't believe that I was being punished. I don't believe that God was teaching me a lesson, but a lesson I learned nonetheless. Right?
I agree with you on that one.
I don't think that God was like, oh yeah, watch this.
Right.
He made the bottom fall out of the coal industry. But I learned a lesson, and I learned something that I think that this farmer learned here today. Because what ended up happening to him at the end was that he died. That night.
Dang.
As he's patting himself on the back.
That's right. Ugh.
So who got to use all of it? Who knows? Not him. But the point is that I think his gravest mistake, I think that this would be easy to look at and say, well, the Bible says that I can't save my money. The Bible says that I can't retire, because that's what this guy was doing. To me, that's not what this is saying. What this is saying is give God the glory and understand that these are gifts that are given to you, that are meant to be shared. So we were talking a little bit ahead of this, right? And you brought up a really good point, and I want you to share that with us about sharing.
Oh, about Dr. Ruby Payne?
Yes.
She is a psychiatrist, and she wrote a book. I believe it's called A Framework for Poverty in 2005 or 2006. And it's kind of turned into a bit of it's definitely a learning tool with my colleagues and I. It discusses the different levels of socioeconomic statuses, from poverty to middle class to the upper class group of people. And whenever I was listening to the sermon today, it sparked my memory of this book, and it in one part of the book it talks about how the lowest poverty levels, if a person from that level is to get maybe $100, she will share that money with her neighbors, her family, whoever, or he will share, because they know that he knows that if he shares that $100 with his neighbor, when that neighbor gets $100, that neighbor will share with him. And it's so strange because the higher you go up, once you get to middle class, people start to hoard their money. And then you go all the way up to upper class, and then you get maybe a high five from, the wealthy as they walk past you. So I really took it to heart, what he was discussing. And I realized, Jesus didn't really hang out with the upper crust a lot. He hung out with the people who share. He hung out with the fishes and loaves type of folk, the people who followed him. And I believe that's where we should be in life. We shouldn't aspire to be kings. He's the king. We should aspire to be his servants.
Sure. I think, though, I think, too, not though, because I don't want to make it sound like I contradict, but I think that there is a place for every person and a person in every place. Mm-hmm. I think that there are those who are in that upper echelon, who have that great wealth, that do share, right? And they share at a different level than you and I would ever be able to.
I totally dig those people.
Yeah, right?
They totally break the mold on everything.
So,
I like that.
I look at those people and I think, and it's hard not to think like what does my dollar so today we did communion, and they put the plate up there, and all that money goes to the food pantry, right? Which is awesome. So it's hard for me to not think like, what does my dollar do, right? Like you've got people who I don't know, but there are people within our community who are making large contributions. And I think, like, I wish I could do that. But I think that we have to remember that that percentage-wise, it's all about it, right? We're all doing our part. Just because I can't give doesn't mean just because I can't give at that level doesn't mean that I'm not doing my part also.
Absolutely.
Now, I think that it's also important to understand that just because I don't have the abundance doesn't mean that I'm not required to give. Right?
Absolutely.
So that is something that I think that I struggle with too. Well, I can't give $1,000, so I'm just not going to do anything. No. If you can't give $1, then get in there and wash some dishes.
Exactly. Give
Right?
your time. Give something of that's precious to you.
Tithing of your time is absolutely as imperative as tithing of your money. And I give a lot of my time.
Oh, absolutely you do.
Well, no, I mean, I give more time than I do money. I can't afford to give as much money as I can time, right? And you look at Heather and the kids, and you think, like, that's an example of a family that we do our best to take care of everybody that we can. And I encourage, and it feels so good to do that. That's where I want people to come in and help out with mums, because you get done with mums and you've made a valuable relationship with someone. There's a guy that goes to mums who I've befriended, and I look forward to seeing him every week, and now I'm starting to see him at church, and it absolutely fills my heart. It's that, hey, guess what? It's working.
It is.
Right?
And I think that the older you get, the more you can probably financially contribute.
Sure.
But you are really stressed for time and strength as you get older. You get tired or you get weaker, but you still have more money. The younger crowd can definitely give and should give their time.
Yeah.
If you were to ask me to come pop into the youth group that you guys are rocking and rolling, by the way, I would totally do that as long as I don't have a kid, on my back or something like that. But I mean, it's knowing that you're part of something bigger.
Yeah.
And the money is awesome. And there are some people that have plonked down some change for real. But there's also the servants who need to be there and guide the newbies in, the new people in, the young people. So I think time is just as important to tithe than money.
Well, it's like you said, Heather and I try to be involved in as much as we can. We try to just do as we're asked. You ask me to do something, I want to be able to do it. But it's the people that I see when I'm here that are always here. And I look and I go, my gosh, like Lane's kindergarten teacher, Miss Hardenberger, like
Love her.
she is here, right? And there is a list a mile long of
Jan.
people. Yes.
Oh,
Well,
and Paula. I could just go on.
You go on and on and on and on and on, and I don't want anyone to think that we missed them or that we didn't see them, but there's a list of people at this church that absolutely go outside and above and beyond. Because when you feel like you're here a lot, and then you look and you're like, wait, I'm going to be here more because so-and-so is here every time I'm here.
That's right. And they do all three services.
Yes. And I love it. So the trick is, I think, though, that we're doing this. We're not being the idiot that this rich farmer is being as much as we can be. Now, in everyday life, I think that there's a part of all of us that does this. And it's our job to try and turn to God and understand that that's not where we need to go. Not see it as a failure when we do go to that direction and become greedy and start hoarding our time and our money and our gifts, but to like understand that, hey, I failed and I'm not perfect because there's only one that was.
Absolutely. And we're human, so it's okay, I think, once in a while to say, hey, look what I've done. Look what I've accomplished. But then we have to remember, who do we give the glory to?
That's right.
Be grateful. You know, he shared with us so that we could share with others. And I think that the sermon kind of brought that around full circle towards the end today.
Right. I agree. I want to say one quote. St. Augustine, I love this quote. He said, Pastor Beaton said that St. Augustine, he quoted St. Augustine in saying, the bellies of the poor are a much safer storehouse than those barns.
Yes.
I love that.
I did too. And can I just say, Reverend Beaton really brings the service to a personal level to where you can relate. And that made so much sense. And
It did.
oh my gosh, it really clicked a light on with me. And I'm like, yeah.
Well, and he has a way of saying things 3 or 4 times in 3 or 4 different ways, so that if you didn't understand it the first time or the second time, like I have to go to all 3 services so that I can get it because I'm very dense. Right?
I'm there with you. Like I definitely get more the second or third time around. Absolutely.
But then he talked about justice is about rejecting the practices that harm someone else and working to eliminate them. And he said that that's our job as Christians. That's a tough role, man. There's some stuff in this book that make you check yourself.
Oh my gosh, so much.
Right?
Unfortunately, we probably should check this book. If we check this book more, we would have to check ourselves less. But, you know,
Well,
we're also human, so
it's a guidebook and personal instruction for Scott Marler. I stole that.
oh. And Heather Marler's daily devotionals, I'm a fan. If she doesn't post and I don't see it, I get sad because I'm like, whoa, I was going to check that out today.
I've never plugged that on this show.
So good. Oh my gosh.
So what she's talking about is Heather gets up at like 4:00 in the morning, and she spends her time. So we talk about this, and Derek will have to put it up there one more time. But on the front of this, on the front of our bulletin, there's the compassion, justice, worship, and devotion. And Pastor Beaton has been on that for the past 4 weeks, and we've kind of gone through every word every week. And one of the things that Heather does is she devotes her time to God, and that's her kind of service. And there are so many people that come and say that helps them. She does it more as an accountability piece for herself, so that she feels like Angie's out there, and if I don't get this done...
Angie's going to text her, go, hey, sister.
But at the same time, she loves it. She enjoys it. And I think that that's the key to devotion. You have to find something that you enjoy doing.
Absolutely. And he shared with her, and she shares with all of us. And then there are so many days that I will text her privately and be like, sister, that's exactly what I needed to hear today. And she's like, I know, right? Me too. And I just think that Heather's and your missions are just they fill other people up, and I think that is where you need to be right now, and I think that's your form of tithing. I think it's fabulous.
Well, thank you so much. Here's what we tell people, and I'll tell you just like I tell everyone else. I truly want to do God's will. Now, I'm not at all under the impression that I'm actually always accomplishing that mission. But that's what I look towards, and we have people that God has provided that surround us, that absolutely lift us up and give us the opportunities. I mean, this podcast, hanging out with you, the
softball team.
Oh yeah, right. The softball team. I got Derek over here running the behind the scenes stuff, and Bethany and Drew, and the list, like we said, goes on and on and on and on, and it is amazing. And this church is amazing, and God is good all the time.
I think he's preparing everybody that you've spoken about just now as vessels that he's going to fill that can be spread in our community. That's what we need to be doing.
So, Ann Mowry, that's her name, right? Yeah. She spoke here between when Pastor Hall and Pastor Beaton.
Oh, wow. She
Mowry.
was so great.
So she talked about, I always think about that, about the vessel in that prayer garden that was overflowing. Derek had a picture of it on the podcast.
Yes.
The blue vessel. And I just always think about that. Is people say, well, I have to be filled up too. Man, when you're serving, you're constantly filled. you know? And it's like, it's the greatest. I don't want to say it's like a drug, but it's like a drug. Like, I want to be a part of what God's doing, and to see, like you said, to see like the smile on people's faces, and to see my homie from Mums come into church now, and to see like this morning. So during the 9:00 service, Heather does a youth study, a Bible study. What do they call it? Sunday school.
Yeah.
She does a Sunday school down in the youth basement, and we had to stop 3 different times because people just kept coming downstairs. And like the past like 3 weeks, it's been like me, Heather, and Finley, you know. And like it's hard to be faithful and devout in those moments and be like, are we just wasting our time? But then you got to stop and be like, no. Look, these kids came down here, and look, we got to get more chairs.
That's right.
That's what I'm talking about.
I love that. Well, Martin Luther started small too, didn't he?
Yeah.
Right outside his father's grave. And no, I think he did pretty good.
It's an amazing thing. I mean, you say that, like, it's just God at work in people. You know, it's God stirring your heart. I know this is a hard thing to do, to come up and sit down in this chair. I do it every week, so it's a little bit easier. I don't mean it's easier for me. It is just, it's not as taxing on me. Like, I'm sure you thought about it this morning. Oh, I got to do that stinking podcast. I don't know what I'm doing. And, you know.
So nervous.
And then you got some communion on your shirt.
I did. I hope some shout will get it out.
The podcast guy pointed it out.
That's right. Hey, you know what? And I'm going to go Pentecostal when I clean it and shout it out. Oh, what? That just happened.
So, that, like, you do those things and you come in here and then you think, like, is it working? Are our views high enough? And then you just, you got to turn around and go, man, if God's got me doing it, then I'm doing the right thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to, I think, turn around and look and see where you've come, to see, the greatness that he has brought into your life and that he is utilizing you for.
That's right.
So I know people always say, oh, don't look behind you. That's the past. No, look behind you. See where you've built yourself. Yeah. See where you're out with God. See where he's utilizing you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, did we miss anything?
I don't think so. My daughter turned 4 this week.
Awesome.
Yeah, she's
Happy
a mess.
birthday.
Yeah, right. Woo woo.
4 is tough.
Oh my gosh, she's so funny though. She cracks me up.
They're little. They're just. That's what do we used to say about Lane? God made him extra cute because he made him extra ornery. All right, so that's a Sunday recap for this week. I encourage everyone to come in and see what we got going on here. Be a part of these missions with us. Be a part of these ministries. We are open to all. The doors are open on Sundays. They're open through the weeks. Through the week. We've got tons of stuff going on at this church. Please come and check us out. Wednesdays at 6:30 downstairs. We have the youth. You don't have to wait to be invited. You are always invited. Come down and hang out with us. You are always invited. Come down and hang out with us. The focus is always going to be on that middle school to high school age. We do some food up in the small dining room, and then we go downstairs. We do some worship time where we sing, and then we do a little lesson, and then we conclude the night just playing games and stuff. It's a ton of fun. Our youth group is growing. And then on Thursdays, you got Mom's Cafe. I think it starts at 4:30, something like that. Right. It's early afternoon. They have a sign outside. It's an awesome ministry. People I push it to people in the public, and they say, well, I don't know if I can come or not. And I'm like, dude, it's for the hungry, and I get hungry on Thursdays.
Mm-hmm. And it's free food.
So it's free food. Come and get it. It's all Jesus's. It's all God's. Come and get some. On Sundays, of course, we're here, and the doors are open, and we're rocking and rolling from 8 a.m. until about 11:30. So you got the 8 a.m. gospel service. It's in the sanctuary. Alan Berry does an amazing job down there. It's that old school gospel.
Good stuff.
Good stuff. Look at her. I'm talking about music, and she's all about it. Then you go down to the 9 o'clock. Sanford goes as the worship leader, not leaser, the worship leader in the 9 o'clock contemporary service, and they rock out. They raise the roof down there every week. It's awesome. Go check them out. And then back up here in the sanctuary at 10:30 is the traditional with the organ and Earl Peterson down there rocking out. The choir is singing, and I didn't know you were in the choir either, by the way.
Well, I've kind of taken a little break this summer since we've, like I said, torn up our house. I told you about that earlier. But this winter we were in it pretty hardcore.
Well, Angie's down there singing in the choir. My wife's in there. Finley was in the choir this morning.
I was so excited to see Finley.
So we're doing big things at this church, and we're moving for God, and we're just trying to do God's will. We're loving God, growing faith, and serving others, and we do that each and every time we're in this building. If we continue to do that, we're gonna continue to praise and worship, and we're gonna grow this church, and that's ultimately our goal, is to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. So, that being said, thank you for checking us out. Remember, every Wednesday at 7 a.m. this goes up on our Facebook page. And then it also goes up on YouTube somewhere thereafter, usually a little bit after the 7 a.m. start time for this. It uploads onto YouTube. YouTube is a little bit more friendly. If you're looking to share this with your friends, YouTube is much more friendly cross-platform. So you can send it from, your Facebook or whatever. If you have trouble with the Facebook video, you can go to YouTube and email that link out, and they can go straight to it. Other than that, I think that I'll wrap it up. One last chance. Nothing.
No,
All right.
My son Elijah's awesome. I forgot to mention him.
Oh,
so there you go.
Elijah's awesome. We'll close with that. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all next week.